Hi everyone, it's Rax bringing you the guide for the new GoD Demon Hunter build. This might be my favorite new set and spec for anything that Blizzard has released for all of the classes. It is so powerful that I cleared a GR 135 solo on one key. The first key that I opened, cleared it, wasn't even that good of a map. I had a super potato conduit, I had no pylon for boss, still cleared it. This is going to be an incredible build for solo. I'm going to show you both a tanky setup that I used in the video and a higher damage setup if you want to get jiggy with it. And then the XP meta setup for getting all the Paragon points and getting your gear throughout the season. And of course a T16 setup that will fly and will actually rival multi-shot, which is amazing. Let's get started. Alright, so the first thing that we need is the entire new set. But unfortunately, it hasn't been loaded into D3 Planner yet, and I want to get this video out to you guys. So I'll show you the whole thing with Marauder's set. It's the exact same build, just instead take the new set. So what does the new set do? This is called the GoD DH because it's the Gears of Dreadlands set. The 2-piece bonus. We get 4 seconds of momentum when we attack with a primary skill at a maximum of 20 seconds. Your primary skills deal 10% increased damage per second of momentum. Okay, so we're going to fire our Hungering Arrow. We're going to get momentum stacks up to 20, and we're going to deal increased damage for every stack. It'll make more sense later. Don't worry if that's confusing. 4-piece. Casting Strafe against enemies will automatically shoot your last used primary skill, and will also give you 60% damage reduction while strafing for 5 seconds after. And while strafing, you gain 8% increased movement speed for each second of momentum. So, what does this mean? As we strafe, it's going to automatically fire our last used primary, and it's going to give us damage reduction and movement speed. Alright, so it essentially kind of turns Demon Hunters into a whirlwind barb, but it's not that simple, because as you're strafing, you're not going to continue to build your momentum stacks or be able to maintain them. So every once in a while, you're going to have to stop and fire another primary skill. Now that might sound like it's very clunky, and it was in the first iteration of the public test realm. But I promise you, it's not annoying at all. You'll see the footage, and this build is super fun to play, and it's pretty silky smooth, and luckily it doesn't feel exactly like a Whirlwind Barb, because if we wanted to play a Whirlwind Barb, we just go play a Whirlwind Barb. And the 6-piece bonus, our primary skills are going to deal 10,000% increased damage. So, we're going to fire our primary skill and get 20 stacks of momentum. Then we're going to strafe around forever and occasionally fire a primary skill again to keep our stacks at 20, and the reward is going to be our primary skills are going to deal outrageous damage, and this set does pack a mean punch. It does do incredible damage. Okay, let's get into the items now. In our main hand, for solo, the tanky version, which is what I played, and this is the build that I like, I'm going with Dawn in the main hand. It's going to reduce the cooldown of our Vengeance by 65%, which is very important. The cool thing about this build is you do not need any attack speed. I don't have a single point of attack speed on any piece of gear. You just don't need it, okay? So we're looking for damage, area damage, and cooldown wherever we can get it, which is exactly the perfect rolls here. And we're going to augment everything with dexterity because we're a dex class on the Demon Hunter. In our offhand, we have Fortress Ballista, which is another hand crossbow. I like this one because the attacks are going to grant you an absorb shield for 3% of our maximum life, stacking up to 10 times. I tried some solos at a lower tier without the Fortress Ballista, and you feel kind of squishy, but once you put on the Fortress Ballista, it feels really good. Again, damage, area damage, cooldown is what we want. For the boots, Dex, Vit, All Resist, and Armor are the perfect rolls. For the pants, Dex, All Resist, and we need the Hungering Arrow damage because this is a Hungering Arrow build. For the rings, we want Focus and Restraint. When we fire a Hatred Spender, we get increased damage for 5 seconds. And when we fire a Hatred Generator, we get mega increased damage for 5 seconds. So, we have our Hatred Spender, which is Strafe. and we have our hatred generator, which is Hungering Arrow. We're going to be using these back and forth, so we're going to keep our focus and restraint buffs up all the time. It's going to be a huge damage increase. This is definitely the route you want to go. Crit area damage on both of them, and we'll take Bane of the Trapped for increased damage, and we'll take Simplicity Strength for super increased damage, and hits with our primary abilities are going to heal us for 4% of our maximum health, and it's going to keep us alive, and it's going to synergize very well with the Fortress Ballista. This set is awesome. For the belt, Hunter's Wrath, Dex, Vit, All Resist, Hungering Arrow is what you're looking for, and our primary skills attack 30% faster and deal 60% increased damage. When was the last time you got 60% damage on a belt? It's amazing. For the gloves, simple, crit area damage cooldown is what we want. Shoulders, Dex, All Resist, area damage cooldown are the perfect rolls. On the helm, Dex, Vit, crit, and we'll take the cooldown gem in the socket. For the chest, Dex, All Resist, and reduced elite damage, and again socketing with diamonds so we can stay alive. For the amulet, we will take Flavor of Time for the doubled pylons, cold, crit, cooldown is what we're looking for, and of course we'll take Bane of the Stricken so we can stack up the damage on the boss and get them down. And finally, Wraps of Clarity. Our hatred generators reduce our damage taken by 50%, more damage reduction, amazing. Cold Elemental, Dex, All Resist, and crit would be the perfect rolls. And now for the skills. There are a couple different ways that you can do this. Everyone has a different opinion. I tried a couple of different things. This is what worked best for me. I'll take Companion, Wolf Companion. The Wolf Companion, when you use it, is going to give you 15% increased damage. And passively, it's going to hit enemies, but that doesn't do anything. So we're doing it for the 15% increased damage from the Wolf. Shadow Power Gloom, I like to stay alive, so I like to go with Shadow Power. We're going to draw on the power. We're going to get our life on hit. Our life per hit gained is 25% of our life on kill, but the real thing that I'm looking for here is Gloom. Reduce damage by 35% when Shadow Power is active. This made me super tanky. You're going to see, I think I only died a single time in the rift that I'm about to show you. Fan of Knives with Bladed Armor. We get 40% additional armor for 6 seconds. Just trying to stay alive. Vengeance, this is why we take the Dawn. We want this to be up all the time. It's going to give us the side guns. It's going to give us the homing rockets. It's going to give us 40% increased damage. And we're going to take the Dark Heart for another 50% damage reduction to stay alive. Hungering Arrow, Devouring Arrow. This is what's going to be dealing all of our damage. We take the Devouring Arrow rune because each consecutive pierce is going to increase the damage by 70%. And finally, Strafe. This is what lets us make use of our 4-piece. We'll take the Drifting Shadow rune because it's going to increase the movement speed for us so we can just zip along the map. Remember to take the Cold Elemental damage because even though Strafe is lightning, Hungering Arrow is what's doing our damage. So make sure that you take the Cold Elemental damage for your pieces of gear. And now for the passives. Cold the Weak, it's going to increase damage against slowed or chilled enemies by 20%. Our Bane of the Trapped is going to slow and chill enemies for us. Ambush, 40% additional damage to enemies above 75% health. It's amazing. Awareness, it's just a cheat death. Dying sucks. Take awareness to stay alive. And finally, Numbing Traps. Enemies that are slowed or chilled, again by our Bane of the Trapped, are going to have their damage reduced by 25% just so we can stay alive. In the cube, we will take the 9th Siri Satchel. Did I say that right? Hungering Arrow has a 25% additional chance to pierce. Depth Digger's primary skills deal 100% increased damage. We are only doing primary skill damage, so that's an incredible armor slot. Must take that. And finally, COE, because when we come to the Cold Elemental cycle, we're going to deal 200% increased damage. Now, if you wanted to go for a higher damage setup, you're going to need to change 4 things. First of all, we're going to use Odyssey's End. Enemies snared by our Entangling Shot take 25% increased damage from all sources. Right now on the PTR, it's actually 150%. Now, that might get toned down a bit. 150% is pretty outrageous. But if they don't tune that down, it's going to actually read 150% increased damage. So that's the bow we'll take. We'll take the same quiver that we had cubed last time, and we'll put it on because now we're using a 2-handed bow. And what we want here on the rolls would be crit, area damage, hungering arrow, ideally. It's very hard to get that, but that's what we would want. And again, this is the damage version, so we're going to drop the Shadow Power Gloom, and we're going to pick up Entangling Shot Heavy Burden. And what we're going to do is we're going to mix and match Hungering Arrow and Entangling Shot. We're going to get the debuff from Entangling Shot, the 150% increased damage, and then we're going to switch to Hungering Arrow and strafe around and kill them with that major damage multiplier. And then, of course, put Dawn in the cube because we're not wearing it anymore. So those are the changes if you'd like to go for a super high damage version. But if you're playing hardcore or you just want to stay alive, which I like to do, I would go with the first version, at least when you're starting. And now, if we want to run the XP metas, which is what's going to be used to be grinding your Paragons all season long in groups, we're going to make a few changes. First of all, we're going to get rid of the Flavor of Time and pick up a Squirt's Necklace. Hopefully we'll have a support there shielding us so we can take advantage of Squirt's Necklace's double damage. Cold crit crit is what we would want here. Now we're going to drop the Wolf Companion and take Smokescreen Displacement. That way we can have 100% increased movement speed and zip through the rift. And then instead of Shadow Power Gloom, we're going to take Caltrops Bait the Trap when we lay it down, and when we're in the area of effect, we're going to get 10% increased chance to crit. It's going to make us hit a lot harder. And then we're going to drop the Cheat Death and the Numbing Traps, and we're going to pick up Blood Vengeance. When we get the Health Globes, we're going to get 3 Discipline. That's going to help us keep casting our Smokescreen and our Caltrops. And Single Out is going to be very good if there's just one Juggernaut left, which happens very often in the Speed XP metas. You're going to get an additional 25% chance to crit against them and zap them down, and it will also really help on the Guardian. And the final setup for you, the T16 setup, again, we'll go with Squirts. We'll get rid of Focus and Restraint here, and we'll pick up Avarice Band, which is going to pick up everything around us, all the gold and all the orbs, because we're going to be zipping through. We don't want to pick any of it up. And we're going to take Boon of the Hoarder this time, because Boon of the Hoarder is going to spray gold everywhere and give us increased movement speed. And then we'll take COE out of the cube, and we'll put Ring of Royal Grandeur here and wear the Depth Diggers. And what that's going to do is it's going to allow us to cube Warzeshian Arm Guards. Whenever we break a wreckable object, we'll gain a short burst of speed, and it's going to let us fly. For the skills, we're going to get rid of the Fan of Knives, the Shadow Power, and we're going to keep the Companion. We're going to take Preparation, Focused Mind to keep our Discipline up. And we're going to take Smokescreen Displacement to move very quickly. For the passives, we're going to take Hot Pursuit. We're going to get increased movement speed when we hit an enemy. We just want to zip through. Ambush is the same. Tactical Advantage, whenever we use Vault, Shadow Power, or Smokescreen, we're going to get 60% movement speed. We're going to fly forward. And everything else should be exactly the same. Now for the Paragon points. In Core, first get your movement speed, then pump everything into Dexterity, and you only need to put in enough Vitality just to barely survive. Most of it should be going into Dexterity to make you as strong as possible. For offense, go for the 2 crits first, and then cooldown and attack speed last. Remember, we really don't need any attack speed. We'll go for all resist first, then life, then armor, and then life per second. And then in the utility, we'll take area damage first, resource cost reduction, life on hit, and gold find. Alright guys, now it's time to show you how this build works. This is the first key I ever plugged at GR 135. Cleared it for the rank 3 clear for Demon Hunter. Let me show you how it all works, and I gotta be honest, I'm so excited for this build next season. I think you guys are gonna really like it. Alright everyone, let's see this build in action. So we've got a battlefield with slashers. That's pretty good. So you can just spam your Vengeance and your Shadow Power and your Fan of Knives and your Companion pretty much all the time. And then what you'll notice that I did there in the very beginning is I fired Hungering Arrows. Do you see that third buff just above my Fan of Knives that says 18, 20, things like that? That is the stacking from the set. So all you have to do is stack it up to 20 by shooting Hungering Arrow at the beginning, and then just start strafing. And then every once in a while, you'll see me stopping to fire another Hungering Arrow just trying to bring my stacks back up to 20. And that's really all it is. So you just spam your abilities, and you can use them a little bit more intelligently than that if you want. You can use them at specific times, but pretty much you can just get away with just spamming them. And then you're going to Hungering Arrow every once in a while, not only to keep your stacks up at 20, but also to proc the second half of your Focus and Restraint. And you have very high damage reduction. I mean, you can see my camera's blocking it a little bit. You can see my health pool on the left there. As long as you stay on the outside and just don't stand in the middle in front of a bunch of danger, you're perfectly fine. Whenever you see an Oculus ring spawn from your Templar, try to stand in it. But you move so fast that it really isn't a problem to stay alive or move everything around. Another thing that I really, really like about this build is the monsters are always following you because you're always kind of just moving around and shooting them in the face. So it's very hard for them to forget about you. As you saw right there, my Templar stacked everything with the S of Johann amulet. That's a very good amulet to give them, so you can take advantage of all the Hungering Arrow piercings. Now, most of the things there are going to hurt me very badly. The Arcane Beams, the Orbiter, the Frozen Pulse, all of that hurts very badly, even with all the damage reduction that we were stacking. But it's no problem for me just to avoid it because I move so fast, right? So that's all I'm doing. I'm just firing a Hungering Arrow every once in a while. I'm zipping around, trying to pull from multiple sides. That way everything can come up, and then I can just AoE it down with Hungering Arrow. So you can just zip from side to side to side, try to get it all to come to the center. Then whenever it's possible and whenever it's safe, of course, go to the Oculus ring and we're just going to zap everything down. The channeling pylon is really nice. It's going to give you infinite shadow power gloom. Very happy to see that. And the trash just kind of dies on its own, and the elites just get whittled down little by little by little. As long as you sort of kite them through the rift, they'll die eventually, and hopefully at the end we'll get a big conduit to just zap them all down. But we'll see what happens. So, spoiler alert, that's not what happens. I just have to kill them manually, but that wasn't really a problem. We'll get a conduit later, but it would have been much better on the battlefields. But that's okay. You can't win them all. It's the first key. I don't think I've ever tried a GR 135 and got it down on the first try. Now, granted, I do have 7,000 Paragon, and that does help, right? But believe me when I tell you that this is a strong build. It's pretty strong. I could have cleared this with less Paragon, believe me. So anyway, we're getting it all down. You can see just really by twirling around, all the slashers just kind of eventually die. It's really nice. The area damage from the Hungering Arrow is really helping. So I can easily zip from side to side to side, and another thing that I like about this build is really I'm constantly doing damage. There's really no downtime on the damage, right? I'm always spinning around and Hungering Arrowing everything. Is that a verb? Hungering Arrowing? Well, it is now. And we're just trying to kill some of these elites, because if we can get a couple of them down, hopefully we can get another pylon. But yeah, even with all the danger here, even with all the affixes, all the elites, all the arcane beams, still haven't had really any problems staying alive. You saw how much damage reduction we got in the items and the skills that we took, so you can see it kind of really coming into action here. And I put barely any points into vitality. I had it like all into dexterity. So if you really want to go even tankier, you can just put more points into vitality, and your Fortress Ballista and your Simplicity Strength will really carry you hard. So that's another way to get a lot stronger. And I'm content just to move forward here. We got a shield pylon. Well, that's not the pylon I needed. I'm fine. I don't need that shield. I wish that was a conduit or a power or something, but oh well. We get what we get. You can see we just killed an elite. You can see that yellow bat is almost dead. You can see that yellow chicken is almost dead. And I don't know, man. This build is fun. I think this is as fun or maybe even more fun than the Whirlwind Barb, and that's one of my favorite builds ever. So, just working on everything here. Now with the shield pylon, you should really be in the Oculus Ring all the time. So there's no excuse to not to take every Oculus Ring. So you can see I switch my strategy with the shield to take advantage of the extra damage. And you can see how quickly, when you sit in that Oculus Ring, how quickly those monsters died. We're at the end of the battlefields. There's no more pylons. Feels bad. But we're definitely going to stay to kill the chicken and the bat. There goes the bat. And there goes the chicken. But now I have so many slashers here, I feel almost obligated to finish them, and I'm wondering if we can kill these blighters as well. So once again, just kind of weave back and forth in the middle. We've got the shield, so we need to sit in these Oculus Rings and just get everything down. You can see I don't know, it's just so satisfying just to see all the monsters just slowly but surely erase off of the screen. Alright, now the question becomes, for science, how quickly can we kill these blues when we've kind of killed everything else? They look like they're pretty hurt, so I feel like it's worth staying. And sometimes it's about sending a message. We killed all these blues brothers and sisters in this rift, and they might think that they might just be able to get away with living. Not today. Oculus Ring spawns. They die instantly. Beautiful. Come on, good follow-up. One time, please. Well, it's a crater. That can be okay. We've got phase beasts and zombies and fatties. This actually looks pretty good, and it's a pretty decent layout for a crater. I'll take it. So the problem here is the big, long, windy hallways. I want to bring all this forward. It's kind of valuable, but at the same time, I kind of need to get a move on. Let's see what's over here. There's a pretty good amount of trash. And once again, I'm just going to weave back and forth and try to bring everything together. Remember, we still have a Condi in play, so if we can spawn another pylon and get Condi, and then we may be able to win here. It's just a matter of how cooperative these elites are going to be. So unfortunately, these mobs move very slowly, and I've got a long, skinny hallway to bring them down. So I'm going to try to thin out the herd a little bit with that Oculus Ring and try to convince all of it to move forward. And hopefully we can get these yellows low enough one day to kill them. We already know we can, because we did that last time on the battlefields, right? By the end, we had killed them all. So I'm okay with moving up here, getting those summoners summoning, coming back, and try to bring this forward. So you're going to have to play around with this play style when you're trying this build. But don't be afraid to go big. Don't be afraid to, piss off 5 rooms of enemies and then go into the middle room, room 3, and try to get them all into one big area. And then if you can, stand in the Oculus Ring and get them all down. Come on, little friends, let's meet down here in the big room. What do you say? And it's pretty simple. You kind of get into a rhythm when you play this build. Every once in a while, hungering arrow, hungering arrow, hungering arrow. And then everything just works from then on. Along with, of course, mashing all of your abilities. Finally, they're all kind of in here, and we've already killed half of them, so that's good. So I'm looking at my timer here. I really don't have any idea how long I need for Guardian. And unless we can kill these elites quickly, I'm guessing we aren't going to have quite enough time. This wasn't good enough of a follow-up. And we didn't get a Condi on the battlefields. Festering Woods would have been better. So what we're going to do is, I'm thinking in my mind, all right, I'm going to bring everything I can together, and I'm going to get it as low as I can, and try to get as much progress as I can. And when I just have a feeling that I'm not going to win unless I get a Condi, I'm just going to dive forward and pray there's a Condi there. And if there is, we should be able to zap these elites down, finish the rift, and maybe have time for boss. So that's what I'm doing. I grabbed a couple of yellows. I brought them right here. I'm trying to get them down, but I'm a little worried. I see all the lead that I had from that lovely battlefield is quickly fading away. So I'm very sad right now. But there's no time to be sad. We need to clear this rift. We need to play really the only card we have left to play. And that's the Conduit card. So everything's pretty low. Don't have that much time left. It's about time just to YOLO it and see. Of course, we get a wall. Of course. Now we YOLO it. And I know there's a pylon spawn above this ramp. Condi, one time, please. Yes. Thank you very much. And back we go to all the hurt yellows that we've done. So I had that idea in my mind, really, from several rooms ago. So don't be afraid to think about your options as you're going. And honestly, feel free to pause the video whenever you want. Now, if there are any small children in the room, nobody look at my webcam in the bottom left corner. Nobody saw what I just said there, right? As I just got, I don't know, magically one-shotted. I'm not really sure how for the first time in the whole rift. Maybe I got hit by like 3,000 Frozens at the same time. Once this yellow dies, it's us versus the Guardian. How good is this build on the Guardian? Well, to be honest, I have no idea. I've never really tried, especially not at this tier. Let's see, we have Arathon, a pretty straightforward boss. All right, well, here we go. Now, Arathon, interestingly enough, corrupted angels can actually crit. And if I understand this correctly, their crits deal 7 times damage. So yes, not double damage, not quad damage, 7 times damage. So pretty much, if you let Arathon come up to you and take a swing at you, you're going to die. So I know Arathon very well from my Thorns days. I spent a lot of years Thornsing. So I'm not going to let him swing at me, because that will be the end of my Demon Hunter. But I'm very pleasantly surprised to see his health is going down very, very nicely, in my opinion, and especially when we get to the cold cycle. So here comes physical and cold. You can see the cold is going to deal significantly more damage, especially as we continue to build our stricken stacks. And it's the same strategy as always. You just move around, and moving around is especially helpful on Arathon to try to dodge some of his poison projectiles, and you can use your Templar as kind of a meat shield. And you keep your Hungering Arrow firing in that same rhythm that you've always had to keep your stacks at 20. And you just try to stay alive. And that's all there is to it. I wonder how this build would be with an ad boss. On one hand, we'd get the area damage and some Oculus rings. On the other hand, it would eat some of our stricken stacks. So that's something to test. But overall, compared to a lot of the other solo builds, I just tried Death Nova Necro. This build is way better at killing the Guardian. Well, that about wraps it up for this one, guys. Thank you so much for watching. I have so many more guides coming. I'm going to put out an Impale guide, because that's the Demon Hunter starter set. I'm going to put out a multi-shot guide for speeds. I'm going to put out an LOD Poison Scythe guide for Necromancer. I'm going to put out a Corpse Explosion guide for Necromancer. We'll have our tier list, and of course our leveling guide. Look forward to seeing you guys in those videos. Thank you so much. I'll see you again.